Welcome, everyone, to the Do It Anyway podcast. I am your host, Maria Redman, here to take you down the crazy path of all things fitness, wellness, nutrition, and some crazy things in between. I'd like to welcome you to this podcast today. For all of you that have been following and listening along for the entire journey, I appreciate you guys so very much, especially as we go into this holiday season. So thank you for listening, watching, all your comments, likes, and subscribes. I appreciate you. If you are new to the channel here, welcome. This is a safe space where I just talk about all the things that you want to know about when it comes to your health, mental, physical, emotional, etc. You can also catch this podcast on Spotify, Apple Cast, and of course YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for those that might need this information. So, with that, let's get into it. Today's podcast is going to be very different. I need to preface a few things before I kind of get into the weeds with it. If you're a parent, this podcast is definitely for you, but I want to say that it may ruffle your feathers a little bit in one way or the other, or on both topics that I'm going to cover today. I am coming to these topics from a place of love, sincerity, and brutal honesty. I think in society we do not do a good job of being brutally honest with each other, and because of that, we have so many issues, and we also allow each other to make all of these excuses that do not help us in the long run. It just further hinders us as a unit. So I want to say that I do come from a place of love and caring, but it's going to be, I think, a little bit brow curling for some people, and that's actually my intention, right? Because I feel like if it sparks an emotion in you that gives you a negative feeling, then that's going to lead you to maybe, hopefully, sit down and kind of think on the topic a bit more and see how much of it applies to you and what changes you can make. So, with that being said, my topic today is talking about our children with their nutrition, in addition to their cell phone and, in particular, their social media usage. So, I need everyone to understand that the one constant in our life from the nutrition part, I'm going to deal with the nutrition first. We eat food each and every day, right? That is the one constant that we all have to do to stay alive. And I was once in this boat. Let me just go ahead and say that. So I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I just now have the better knowledge, and I've utilized this knowledge in my life, in my family life, and so I feel that I should be sharing this. Um, when we get pregnant, ladies and dads, this being starts off in, for the most part, barring no genetic issues, in a very amazing, wholesome state. Everything's working. The brain, the joints, the eyeballs, all of it, you name it. We are in a womb in a most amazing state of perfection. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And then we are born, and for most women, if you can, you breastfeed. Some women, for whatever reasons, can't or choose not to breastfeed. And personally, I think that that's a disservice because we are built to feed our own children. We are the only mammals on the planet that give milk from other sources to our children. Um, and there's a lot of key nutrients that children miss in not doing that. But we make choices there, right? Okay. And I'm not going to browbeat anyone if you didn't breastfeed. It's okay. So we go the formula route, and that's completely fine. And then they age a little bit, and then it's the stage of all the jars of baby food. And if anybody is like me, I'm still love a jar of baby apricots. I love it. And the peaches were the bomb. But we gave our babies all of this great whole foods, just mashed and pureed in a jar. And this goes on for quite some time. And then the first hint of a tooth shows up. And the first thing we do is we give them a highly processed, over the top food like a French fry or mashed up chicken nuggets or pieces of pizza that have been kind of pulled apart. And this is their introduction into whole processed foods after they just came off of not being picky, eating all of the things in baby food, all of the vegetables. And then there were a couple that some didn't like, but for the most part, they had their veggies and their fruits and their mashed meat. And then we go and ruin it all. So then they turn age 1, age 2, and now they're just eating more and more garbage processed foods. I mean, now we're throwing the Cheerios on the little tray table so they can pick them up. And I mean, nothing at this point is healthy. We're not giving them any fruit anymore. We've just kind of skipped over the whole foods and gone straight to whatever we can microwave or pop in the oven and cook really quickly without any type of thought process behind this. People, this is asinine. Their brains are constantly on this rapid pace as they're infants, this rapid pace of brain development. And you are bogging it down with foods that we know scientifically, this is not a maybe, excuse me, this is a known fact. We are putting all the high sugary foods, the high salt, high, bad carbs, bad oils into their bodies at this most critical stage of life when their brains and their bodies are rapidly growing and forming. Why on earth would we do this? And then they get age 3, 4. Now they are picky eaters. But are they picky eaters because now you're trying to go backwards to giving them whole foods and putting some veggies on their plate? And they're looking at you like, what the heck is this? Where's the damn French fries, lady? Because I've been eating French fries and nuggies, and that's what I want. I don't want this green thing. I haven't seen a green thing. I don't ever remember seeing anything green on my plate. They do not remember the jars of baby food. So they're very disconnected from this whole thing. And now you start saying, I have a picky eater. Ladies and gentlemen, this, and I know this is going to sound so strong, but I am telling you, I mean this in the most lovingly way. This is a form of silent child abuse. Your child will be a child a lot shorter in time than they will be an adult. You are setting this human being, excuse me, whom didn't ask to be here, you're setting them up for failure because as they age, the meals get exponentially worse. Most kids go to school now with no breakfast at all. If they do get breakfast, it's something sugary like a Pop-Tart or a croissant type thing or Uncrustables, things of that nature, high sugar cereals. So if they do get the breakfast, thankfully, but they're still going to school with all of the nonsense, their lunch boxes are full of nothing but gummy items, chips, cookies, you name it, and then maybe a sandwich with some highly processed lunch meat in between the bread slices, poor bread quality. I mean, parents, what are we doing? What are we doing? I need you to really just take a moment and suck this in. You will eat these same foods and say things like, oh, I know I shouldn't have eaten that. I know that's no good for me. If you can say as an adult that you know it's no good for you, why on earth are you giving it to your children? Is it a misery likes company type thing? I mean, really, we really need to be very aware of the damage that we are doing to them. We have higher rates of ADHD than we've ever had before. We have higher rates of childhood depression starting in age 6 and 7. This is just, they don't have enough life to be depressed about anything. So there has to be an issue here, and it could be partly home life. Of course, there's some children living in homes that are tragic, but for the mass amount of these children, they don't all live in homes that have, drama going on. It's the food that we are feeding them as their brains are developing. There are no nutrients going in, just highly processed foods, high sugar foods. Childhood type 2 diabetes is on the rise in the worst way ever. How can someone 10 years old have type 2 diabetes? And this is factually happening right now in our society. And look, we can blame the food industry. Yes, they're making the food. I get it. But when do we finally sit down and say that I'm the parent? The buck stops with me. You're the parent. This is supposed to be your most prized, loved possession that was gifted to you from God. And you're treating it like it's just a piece of garbage, like it doesn't even matter. This is not good. It's unfair, and it's so disrespectful to the child and the setup for their life. They're children. They do not have a say in the game. They don't. We are in control. It's time for us to stop the madness and say enough is enough. I did with my kids. When I started my journey, I didn't say, oh, I'm going to get myself in shape. That's another thing I see men and women doing. They get the trainer and they're getting themselves in shape, and they're prepping the food, and then they're still giving their kids the same garbage. That's wild to me. Like, oh, so you're going to fix yourself up and just keep trashing them so that now your child would have to do all the fixing when they get to adulthood? Like, this is so disrespectful to them. These are human beings. And it pains me inside when I see this constantly going on. When I did my fitness journey, guess what? It was a household change. My daughter brings it up all the time about that daggone tilapia. She is like, we went from good old pork chops fried in grease to just straight up clean. Like, there was no fluff, no frills, no nothing. Everybody did it because I understood at that time that if I'm doing this to my body, what the heck am I doing to theirs? If I'm making the change, I need to make sure it's changing for them as well. Now, if they want to, when they become adults, if they want to eat and do whatever they choose to do, that's their business. It's beyond me at that point. But as my children, as people who didn't ask to be here, I brought them here. The least I can do is make sure that I take care of them. And so we need to do a better job. We need to keep our kids away from high sugar content, excess sodium, all the harmful additives, and lack of nutrients. If you have a child that's on the spectrum, which I have, my third oldest is autistic, those kids that are on the spectrum or have developmental delays, it is imperative that you give them an abundance of nutrients to their brain so that they can function and be the best that they can possibly be. You can't expect a child with already diagnosed ADHD, and honestly, I just wonder if maybe the kids don't play outside enough, and I'll get to that piece in a second, but they're diagnosed ADHD, and the first thing that you give them for breakfast is a Pop-Tart, and then their lunch comes and snack time comes, and it's nothing but sugar and high processed things. And then you're irritated because the office has called you yet again to say, hey, come get your kid because they're acting crazy. And you're mad. You're the problem. Your child is not the problem. You are the problem. You went and sent the kid to school all sugared up and then continued the sugar high throughout the afternoon. Of course they're going to behave like that. First of all, they're already kids that should have high energy. And now you're drugging them with foods that they should not have. Do you not think that they're going to start to act like a crazy crack addict in class? Stop blaming the teacher. You're putting so much stress and strain on the teacher. You're putting a lot of stress and strain on yourself as well, because now you've got to leave work. You've got to go pick up a kid. Now you're screaming at the poor kid in the car. You shouldn't be behaving like this, yada, yada, yada. We all know the argument. But when do you not look in the mirror and say, am I part of the problem here? Now, if you're feeding your kid well and you're not giving your kid these items and they're still acting like that, then look for different solutions. However, right now, we know it's been scientifically proven you give just normal kids with normal brains this stuff, they act like wild animals. You're the problem. You, the parents, we are the problem. And it's high time we start taking some responsibility for these things. And I know I'm going to hear the argument. Oh, but what do you want me to do? My kids need to have a snack. Agreed. They need to have a snack. So, what are we giving them for snacks? Fresh fruit, apples. They come with slices. Now you can dip them in all kind of apple almond butter, peanut butter. So you've got that going on. Oranges. You've got berries that you can give them. Vegetable sticks, carrots, celery, cucumbers. You can have them dipping that in hummus, guacamole, maybe a little mild salsa if they like that. If they don't have a nut allergy, you can give them nuts or seeds. Make sure it's age appropriate, right? You don't want to send a kid in for kindergarten, first grade with nuts because they do things with nuts like stick them in their nose and their ears and choke on them. So don't give them to them when they're that young, unless you've tested it at home. I've seen it. Don't do it. I've had to have a nut removed from a nose before. True story. Greek yogurt's always a great option for kids with a drizzle of pure real honey, not the store-bought crappy honey, but real honey and some fresh fruit on top of it. Even whole grain crackers, for heaven's sakes, with some different nut butters. These are all good snacks. I mean, the list goes on. I have all kinds of recipes of things that you can make for your kids. There's an entire laundry list of whole food items that you can give your kids to take to school to have for snack. That is going to give them nutrients, that's enjoyable, and that will have them not acting like crazy people in class when they should be normal and sitting down having conversation with their friends. But now you've got, we all know the kids that are jumping on the table and the seats and the everything else. Don't be a part of the crazy. Don't do it. Also, making sure that they are not having those sippy box juice things. That stuff, first of all, last year I cut open some Capri Suns. My grandkids like Capri Suns. And fun fact, as a child, me and my friend Rashida robbed the neighbor for some Capri Suns. It's a long story, but I had never tasted one. We couldn't afford them, and I really wanted them. But I digress. Every time I say Capri Suns, I think about the robbery. That was my crime. My life of crime started there. It's Capri Suns. But I saw something on TikTok with the Capri Suns and cutting them open, and they left a few at my house. I don't really condone the Capri Suns, but they're my daughter's children, and I can only recommend. And she's made great changes, but they were drinking the Capri Suns, and when they left, I decided I was gonna cut them open, the pouch open. There was so much mold in there that I nearly died. I called my daughter to me. I was like, Capri Suns this cannot be done. They're off. I don't want to see them around them. I will be furious because it was just full of mold. I was so disgusted. So the juice boxes and these pouches, you cannot see what the heck is inside of them. You need to be done with those. Your kids need to go with a nice, BPA free plastic drink canister, or there's all kind of canisters out now with some great water. There's natural flavorings that you can put in them now if they want, flavored water. That's what you need to be sending your kids to school with. Not soda, not the pouches. I cannot tell you how many kids go to school drinking soda. Like, when I was a kid, soda was like a treat. Like, that was something that you were like gifted, on a once a month. It was like an outing to go get a junior Whopper. My dad would get me with a pickle in the center and a Coke. And like, it was like the treat of all treats. Now you guys are eating this garbage every single day and the soda every day and sending the kid to school with a soda. Who sends a kid to school with a can of soda? This cannot. You know that it's not right, but yet you're doing it, and I'm going to say this because it needs to be said. Parents, it's laziness. Don't tell me you don't have time. You brought those kids here. You made them. They did not ask to be here. It is your responsibility to do what you have to do. Put your daggone phone down, stop scrolling, and go make a home cooked meal. My kids did not eat school lunch. They went to school with tuppies full of home cooked food. So that's what you need to do. Make a home cooked meal. If you say you're strapped for time, air fryers and crock pots are your best friend. You can do a lot of things. Buy 2 crock pots if you need to, and crock pot a couple different things, and you can have that food for the entire week, multiple meals at this point. Do that this way because it's a set it and forget it thing. You're not having to really incur too much of your time besides just putting whatever you're putting in the crock pot. Use your crock pot. Making like, nice, rice or pastas, whole wheat pastas in bulk so that you have it. That cooks extremely fast. Pasta is not a 1 hour dish type thing. So I don't want to hear it there. Grilled chicken, fish, steamed veggies. If you're a vegetarian, you can do tofu or tempeh. But give them food. Send them with food. Stop giving kids the mystery meat meal from the school. I got sick in 2nd grade off of corn, cream corn. I'll never forget it. I had to go to the emergency room and they pumped my stomach with charcoal. And that was the most nauseating, excruciating, just feeling. I didn't eat corn for a very, very, very long time. And actually, I still feel a little weird when I see corn and things. That's how bad school food is. It's not, because of budgeting, whatever's left over gets repackaged. They're eating old pizza, old nuggets. Guys, it's not good. Now, I'm going to hear some of you guys say, well, I can't afford it. Well, let me say this. I'm about to refute the whole I can't afford to eat better argument right now. If you are about to celebrate Christmas on Wednesday and you already got your little tree up with all your gifts at the bottom that you struggled to buy, because remember, you don't have any money to eat well. You can't afford it. But you bought all these gifts and there's Jordans and the PlayStations or whatever the hot stuff is now. I'm probably dating myself. I don't know what's cool now, but whatever the cool thing is, and everyone's getting new phones and iPads. You don't belong buying gifts if you're broke. If you don't have 3 months worth of savings for your household in case an emergency happens, and you're telling me you can't afford to buy nutritious food, but you can buy all of that stuff for a 1-day holiday that actually has nothing to do with any of us. It's Jesus's birthday. We should be giving him the gratitude and him the thanks and giving him the gifts, not the other way around. But if you're doing all of that, you have the money. You're just choosing what you want to put your money and energy and time into. And that is just the hard, cold facts. I bet a lot of you have spent hours in stores looking for gifts, hours online looking for gifts. All of this is time that is just ticking that you could have been making a meal and using that money that you spent on the gift to give to your children, which is the gift of life, which is one of the best gifts you can possibly give someone, is it not? I mean, I really want you guys to just let this soak in. Just let it all soak in. We understand that food is not making us well. A lot of you guys watch the things that are conspiracy theories of how they're doing the food so they can keep us this way, yet you keep buying it. Stop. Stop it. Just stop it. Because you are harming your children. And by proxy, you are harming all of our futures this way. We used to hear the saying, the children are the future. That is the truth. And I don't mean to be demeaning, but I'm looking at these younger generations and realizing that as a large group, not all, but as a large group, they're not very intelligent. Yeah, they can work tech, but they're not intelligent about basic level things. How to work a washing machine is still one of the most highly Googled things for first year college students. Like, what in the actual world? You're going to college just trying to figure out how to work a washing machine? That's crazy to me. So, knowing this, we need to set our children up better from a nutrition standpoint. We are just, we're dropping the ball. And it's really not that difficult to prep things ahead for your children so that they can be in a better state mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, there's all of the things, right? So that's the nutrition piece that I wanted to kind of touch on. The next piece that I want to hop on and talk to you about is definitely going to ruffle feathers because it even ruffled feathers at the school that my youngest went to. But I'm going to say it. If your child has a cell phone between the ages of 5 and 16, you need to rethink that whole thing. We are exposing our children in society today to everything, all of the things all at once. They see all of it. 6-year-olds looking at all of the craziness that's happening on social media, sexual things, crimes, killings, you name it, anorexia, bulimia. There's, depression, people crying, I'm so depressed and about what they have no idea. You're letting your children have these things. And I already hear it. Oh, my kid has this and this going on and they got to have a cell phone. I played every single sport imaginable at school from elementary all the way up through high school. All so I could stay away from my household because it had some drama going on with my dad's drinking and drug addiction. I never, phones didn't exist. There was no cell phone. Pagers had just come out like in my later years of high school. So there was no communication between myself and my parents. And I was at parks very far away from my home, walking 3-4 miles away from home to go to parks, recreation park to play or back to the school to play, whatever it may be. And guess what? I was fine, completely fine. And I mean, times definitely have changed. I don't advise you letting your kids walk home because that's not a good idea these days, unfortunately. But not only did I not have a phone, I also had to walk home because my dad was either working or on a bender and my mom did not drive at all. So I would just go and walk or ride my bike everywhere that I needed to be with no phone. And yes, there's all the memes and the jokes on social media about Gen X, excuse me, and how, wild and viral we are. But we did learn how to take care of ourselves for better or for worse. And I think our generation is the generation that started off with handing our kids these things that we wished we had, only to realize that we have been harming our children's emotional state big time. I mean, how do they make it through their day now is beyond me because you have 15-year-old influencers on social media now making 15-year-olds feel like they are behind in life. They haven't even begun to live. And then you've got the crazy parents who want to put their children on social media to make money off their kids like they're a freaking product, which I think is so sad. It's so, so sad. Pushing this child into a life of, I guess, what we call internet famous, all for them to, in the end up with drug addiction and mental issues and you name it, or getting sexually abused by people that are in these spaces. It is crazy, and we are doing it to them. Your children don't need a phone. I don't want to hear this nonsense that's about how the teachers operate and how they communicate with them. Guess what? My youngest daughter was at school. I said she's not having a phone because somewhere in her younger days, through some means, I think it was her cousins, unfortunately, she got a hold of a phone and porn, and it really wrecked my youngest life for quite a while. I mean, hypersexual behavior. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely not going to give someone with that any access to computer usage and a phone beyond homework. And so I told this to the school, and they thought that I was crazy because I didn't want her to have a phone. And I said, well, you can call me crazy all you want, but I don't want to have a sexual deviant on my hand or someone who's either becoming, a street person selling their body or maybe even molesting children. And I know some people are going to say, man, that seems like a far stretch, but is it really? Because we have a lot of people, adults, sexually abusing children, teachers even, and they're on these social media platforms all day long absorbing all of this stuff. And this is adults who can't handle these things, and we're giving it to children as well. So I said, no, I'm not. I'm sorry. This is how I'm raising my children in my home. They don't drive. They don't need a phone. That's the rule. And whatever homework she needs, I just stayed going to the school, making sure I got the homework, or you can email and send it to me and I will disseminate it. Because we are creating a society full of children that are emotionally unstable. We have school shootings happening all the time by students. We had this latest one done, unfortunately, by a young lady. She has been doing all her social media research on Columbine. That's a long time ago. She's 15 now. Columbine happened, I think, 2012 or something like that? That was a long time ago. And here it is. She's researching that. She did the school shooting in one of the T-shirts of a music group that, was applauding the Columbine shooters. I'm like, she had access to this, though. Access. The parents. The parents. You can't blame Instagram. Everyone's like, oh, it's on Instagram. No, that platform was actually designed for adults. It's on the parents to say, no, you're not old enough to have this because you're not mature enough for these things. End of story. End of story. I mean, adults are not mature enough for social media. I was just telling Ben a moment ago, you guys can post something. Some of you get mad if nobody likes it. My ex-husband was famous for that. Oh, no one liked my post, just my mom. Who gives a crap? These are imaginary people for the most part. Then you have the ones that my brother and sister-in-law used to do this famous one. They're supposed to be so influential, so full of light and love, and they're the esoteric thinking of and all of that, high vibe, high frequency, and people would post good content, something very positive, and they would skip all of those good comments to find the one negative one to start fighting with the person who did the negative comment. What? That just shows immaturity on the adult level with social media. Adults can't even handle social media, but yet you're expecting your children who might put a nice post of the selfie of themselves up and someone's, because bratty catty girls or rude boys say something on the post and now she's into this emotional tailspin because they're not ready to handle that. If we as adults can't handle it, how are we expecting children to handle that? Kids are committing suicide based off of the cyberbullying. I mean, this is wild. There would be no cyberbullying if your child wasn't on said cyber. How about that? There'd be no cyberbullying. I need you guys to really understand this. If you want to F up your own life, nutritionally and emotionally, psychologically, then fine, do it to yourself. But sometimes I feel a little aggrieved about it because I'm like, dang, I got to walk in society too, right? My grandchildren are at school. I sit here now and I have to be honest with myself and say, wow, they might eventually meet up, because the statistics at this point, with the school shooting, that really, really, it makes me upset and sad inside, because you parents will give your kids these phones and access to social media, and you do absolutely no checking. My kids will tell you, I used to do the locker check. I would show up at their school, get the principal or whoever was in charge of the lockers, and open it up while my kids were in class, and go and rifle through their lockers and dig through, read all the little love notes and everything. Shout out to Sarah and Nick for staying together since the early days. They're married now, my daughter and son-in-law, but they've been together for forever. I read all the love notes, all of it, all of the things, because they're my children and I need to understand exactly what's going on in their lives. Most of you parents have no idea what's going on in your kids' lives. You have no idea who they're chatting to. Most of your teenage girls are chatting to older males on the internet, and you are oblivious to all of this going on, but you think it's cute because they got an iPhone. If you keep giving children adult things, they're going to behave just as adults. And then when you go to reprimand them or try to educate them and put them in their place, they don't listen to you because they think that they are on your level. This has to stop, guys. This has to stop. We are not making them well. And I don't live in fear, but I'm constantly concerned about who I'm standing around when I go to public places now, because which person is getting ready to have a psychological event and start shooting out here because they have a grievance with, I have no idea. I don't even think sometimes they really know what their grievance was. So I'm not going to belabor it, but I do want to finish with this. Your children are precious. They're gifts. Stop buying them all this garbage, fancy jackets and shoes and all the nonsense, and taking them to eat all this junk, but we're spending time together. No, really spend some time. Feed them well. Sit with them. Talk with them. Get to know them, who they are on a very personal level. I spent many hours just talking to my children. Those are some of my fondest memories. I can barely remember any of the gift I've ever given them, what they opened it, what their reaction was. But I can remember very vividly conversations that I've had with my children. Teach them emotional intelligence. For the love of God, stop poisoning them with what you know is poison. Stop poisoning yourself. We need to do better as a collective with ourselves and our children. And this is just kind of me wanting to urge people to take a moment and think about how they're raising their children and what they're giving them access to and what they're giving them a lack of. So lack of nutrition and an abundance of emotional anxiety, depression. These apps do nothing positive for any of us. None of us. So I just really want to implore everyone out here, if you are a parent, please take the job seriously. We're given the job, take it seriously. If you don't do any job well, this is the one that you need to be doing well. And it's never too late to make the changes. I don't care how old your children are. If they're still underneath your roof, make the change, and make the change as a collective. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the Do It Anyway podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. You can also, again, listen on Spotify or Apple Casts. And I will see you guys next week with another episode. Peace.